Hey, how's it going? Today I saw a post from TubeBuddy saying show me how to make some soup. So I replied to that saying sure, I'll make some now and make a video about it. So that's what we're doing here. This is going to be relatively quick, and what I'm going to do is make wonton soup. So I'm going to make this entirely from scratch. So what I've got here is a bit of pork, which I'm going to turn into roast pork. So I'm going to put a Hoisin sauce onto that and roast it. I have got some pork mince here to go into the wonton. I've got some wonton wrappers over here. I've got some crushed ginger and garlic. I've also got some fresh garlic here that's already peeled. I've got some prawns, a spring onion. Over here we've got a nice bit of bok choy. We've got some dried shiitake mushrooms here, so I'm going to soak some of those and chop them into it as well. For the Hoisin sauce, I've also got a bit of caster sugar. We've got some coriander here to go into it just for a bit of flavour. Into the soup we're also going to put a couple of carrots. I've got some water chestnuts here which are going into the wonton. I've got some chicken stock here. This is the best stock I've found for making wonton soup or for making congee, and a bit of soy sauce, oyster sauce, some sweetened soy sauce, and some pure sesame seed oil. Oh, and of course the eggs. Can't forget the eggs. They're one of the most important things in this whole thing. So I'm going to start with the Hoisin sauce that we're going to make and put onto this and shove that into the oven to roast. Wonton always come wrapped into two sets, at least where we are here in New Zealand, so you can take half of it off the top really easily. I don't know why it works out that way, it just does, and then the other half can go back into the freezer. So we'll just put them aside for now. I've got a bowl here. I'm just going to grab an egg and break that into the bowl. We're going to use this later for sealing the wonton, so I'll grab a whisk and mix that up fairly well. I'm going to take another egg, just going to break that in there, and then just using a couple of chopsticks stir that around a bit. Now we're going to start putting everything else we want into the pork mixture here as well. The egg in here is just used as a binder. I might put a second egg in there actually. Just nice and quick like that. So there's the egg ready to go. Next I'm going to open up this tin of water chestnuts. Water chestnuts are what give wonton a bit of a crunch. Not everybody uses them, but well, not everybody can get hold of them very easily, but we've got a really good Asian supermarket nearby where I'm able to get these from. So I'll just open that up, pull the lid off. So I'm just going to grab a pile of those out of here and put them on the board, and then I'm going to chop them up really fine. Make sure your knife is nice and sharp so that you don't slip with it. That's fairly fine. You don't need it too fine because as they cook it's going to break up even more, so say 4 or 5 millimeter cubes is fine. And that can go straight into the pork mixture here. I'm going to do the same here with the garlic. I'm just going to chop some of that up. And that can go straight into the pork mixture as well. The next bit I'm going to put in here are the mushrooms. As I said before, I grabbed some dried mushrooms. So what I did is earlier I just grabbed a handful of them and I've put them into some water. It only takes about 10-15 minutes in warm water and they're ready to chop, so I'll just strain those off quickly. And after you've drained them, grab a handful, grab them in your hand and just give them a good squeeze and get as much liquid out of them as you can. There we go. You want all that liquid out of there, or otherwise it can mess up your pork mixture. Now that I've got that, once again I'll just start chopping some of that up. This doesn't need to be too fine because it'll break up while it's cooking. That's the mushroom. Just going to pick that up and dump that in there as well. Now I've just run a bit of hot water to thaw the prawns a bit, and all you need to do is just squeeze that and the tail comes off them. Now that I've got these, what I'll do is I'll just give them a bit of a squeeze to get any surplus liquid out of them. You can see why I do this, because otherwise you end up with a lot of liquid in here. And then I'm just going to chop those up. Now, because I'm sharing this with somebody who's not big on seafood, that's an understatement, what I'm going to do is put these aside in a bowl until I've made the first lot of wonton, and then I'll put them in, the rest of them for me. And finally, I'm just going to mix all of this stuff here into the mince mixture. This is going to be the contents of all of our wonton. With 1/4 kilo of mince, we should get about 2, maybe 3 dozen out of it. Now, because I don't like wasting, what I'm going to do is just pour the rest of the hoisin mix into there as well, because it's basically just sauces that give a great flavour. I'm also going to add in just a small amount of coriander, mix all that in as well, and that's going to give us a really beautiful flavoured wonton. That's the carrot. This is a spring onion. Now I'm going to cut the spring onion a little bit higher than a lot of people will, and I'll show you why in a second. Just slice that there, put it aside, and then just quickly run up the spring onion. And this is all going into the soup base, which we're just going to slowly start warming now so that it's ready for when the wonton are made. And the bok choy. Now, to make the actual wonton, we just need the egg mixture, which I'll just put over here, the mince filler, and of course the wonton wrappers themselves. So what I'm going to do here is grab a wonton wrapper, and it just takes a moment to separate them out. Be careful not to tear them when you do that. Then you just take one of these wonton in your hand. I grab a teaspoon of the filler. That's probably a bit too much actually. I'm just going to put some of that back. And then what we do is we just grab a pastry brush here or something similar. Usually you do it with a pair of chopsticks, to be honest. You do that and have the fill in the middle, and then you just fold that over corner to corner and just squeeze it together. The egg acts as a sealant, and there's your first wonton. Looks legit, right? Okay, let's do another one. Wonton skin. I'll just grab a small teaspoon of the filling material, put it in the middle. You don't need a lot in them, and wrap that over, seal it around the sides, sort of bundle it up like that, and there you go, second wonton. So we'll do about a dozen of these each for the soup. And now what we can do is start transferring them over to the pot. And the other thing I'm going to take to the pot with me is the sesame oil, because a little drop of this adds a lot of flavour and will also stop them from sticking together. And then I just place them into the water. Make sure the water is churning around when you do this so they don't sit on the bottom. And so I sort of place them around the pot, spaced out, so that they don't stick together when they start cooking. There we go. You don't want to leave them out too long, or otherwise they could start sticking together and the pastry can go soggy on the board. So once again, I'm just going to place them around the edge of the pot and give them all a bit of space. And there we go. And that's going to cook up. Now there's one more thing we need for the soup. And that's the pork, which is in here. Let's pull that out. That looks like it's pretty much spot on. So I'll just take this over to the board, and I'll just use my chopsticks that I use for everything and pull that out of there. It's sizzling away quite nicely. So that's pretty much spot on. And what we're going to do is just slice that up so that it can go into the soup as well once it's done. Just want to cut it into thin slices. So with that coating on here, it's just going to come up beautiful, and it's going to soak up some of the flavour out of the soup as well. So I've got a bowl here. I'm going to put a bit of pork in it. Over here we can see that the wonton now have all floated to the surface, which is a good indicator that they're all ready. They don't take a long time to cook, which is good. So I can just pull them all into there. Right, I'll leave the soup at the moment because I need to boil the next lot, but there you go, wonton soup without quite the soup in it yet. Now the soup base should have a pretty good flavour all by itself, but if you want to, you can add some extra stuff to it, like just a bit of salt and pepper if you want to, or some soy sauce. Oyster sauce is a really good thing to add, some ginger is fantastic, and if you're more into the spicier northern China food, then a bit of chili oil in there wouldn't go amiss as well. The second batch is nearly ready, so we'll try the stock out and see how it goes and have a look and see what flavours we want to add.